Kathleen Kennedy is an evil, life-sucking, feminist parasite who's doing everything in her power to ruin Star Wars with her SJW politics. At least, that's what idiots on the internet would say. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, movie producer and current president of Lucasfilm, is not very popular within certain parts of the Star Wars community. A lot of people think she's the reason Star Wars is supposedly ruined, but as we know, there are a lot of different types of people in the Star Wars fandom, and not all of them know what they're talking about. Basically, the main group of people who downright hate Kathleen Kennedy are people from the fandom menace. Now, the fandom menace is an online identity or a group of toxic people who currently hate everything Disney does with Star Wars. There's a huge crossover between the fandom menace and anti-SJW YouTubers like Geeks and Gamers. It's far-right commentary and often bigotry veiled in a shroud of geekdom. Thing is, instead of seasoned or at least well-argued criticism, all the whining and complaining that comes out of these people comes off as very disingenuous. Many YouTubers and just people online in general like having someone to blame for all their misery and anger. They need to create these scapegoats who can symbolize everything they deem to be wrong with the current state of pop culture. But their dislike for these people rarely has any actual basis, and is instead motivated by the insane amount of money and views hating on these people generates. These scapegoats include people like Brie Larson, who, as we've talked about before, hasn't really done anything to warrant the abuse she has received, and Kathleen Kennedy, who we'll be talking about today. My views on the hate towards Kathleen Kennedy have always been that it's unwarranted, but I wanted to truly dive deep into it. I wanted to understand her role at Lucasfilm. I wanted to understand why people have a problem with her. And I wanted to conclude whether or not the hatred for her is based on anything other than just bigotry and grifting. But also, just quickly before we get into the video, I recently set up a Patreon. So if you're interested in monetarily supporting the channel, which also comes with a couple of benefits, then there's a link down below. But for now, just sit back, enjoy your Wiener Schnitzel, and let's dive right into the video. Now, before we get into the modern day conflict, I wanted to quickly give you guys some background information about Kathleen Kennedy, because this woman is an absolute legend within the film industry, and don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Kathleen Kennedy's movie repertoire is insane. Many of the movies a lot of us grew up watching have her name in the credits. Movies like E.T., Jurassic Park, and Back to the Future are all produced in some form by her. She's helped shape cinema as we know it today. Without all the classics she's worked on, who knows what Hollywood would even look like today. Now, she's not a creative influence on any of these movies, let's get that straight. Her job has never been to write or direct, or really meddle too much in the creative process at all. Her job as a producer means her responsibility lies in executive decisions. Part of her job revolves around hiring the writers and directors and overseeing production. She may not have much creative input, but she makes sure that the creative process runs smoothly. She worked alongside George Lucas and Steven Spielberg on Indiana Jones, and George Lucas even appointed her as the new president of Lucasfilm before Disney overtook the company. So anyone who says that she has no business being the head of Lucasfilm or that she doesn't care about movies are fucking idiots. But now this brings us to modern day Star Wars and the everlasting conflict within the fandom. During my research, one of the only non-toxic criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy I found is that she's not doing a very good job at being a studio executive. This can absolutely be debated, but a lot of people who don't like Disney's Star Wars can attribute some of their criticisms to her putting her trust in the wrong people. For example, J.J. Abrams or Dave Filoni. Some people just don't agree with the creative people she hires and feel that it's sending Star Wars down the wrong path, and that is completely valid. Like we've said so many times before, it is not toxic to not like Disney's Star Wars. You can absolutely despise the movies or TV shows, and you can criticize the executive decisions from people like Kathleen Kennedy. This is all valid. However, there are a lot of people who criticize Kathleen Kennedy for completely invalid reasons, or they do it without any context or understanding of her role in Star Wars. First of all, she's not the highest up when it comes to Star Wars. She answers directly to the Disney Board of Directors and the shareholders, and one of the names you might have heard before is Bob Chapek. A lot of the major directions the franchise will undertake are based on their decisions and not hers. All this stuff about wanting to please China or getting token actors of different races is their decision, not Kathleen Kennedy's. Another misconception is that she hires everyone, which she doesn't. She hires the writers and the directors, but she doesn't have much involvement in casting. So all this stuff about Kathleen Kennedy pushing her SJW politics into Star Wars has no foundation to stand on whatsoever. You'll be hard-pressed us to find much regarding Kathleen Kennedy's political opinions at all. There is no evidence that she's a feminist except for the time she put on a The Force is Female t-shirt, which by the way, if you don't know, was an unrelated Nike campaign, but she thought it would be fun to put it on since she's an important figure in making Star Wars. It's funny, none of these people who call her out for being an SJW ever managed to provide any actual evidence of any of this left-leaning propaganda they claim she's always pushing. They claim that she's the one behind all the pandering to the woke community, but think about it. Who gains from Star Wars being more woke? Her? No, the people who own the stocks. I mean, she's a rich studio executive. I wouldn't be surprised if some of her political opinions leaned a bit right. However, all that is irrelevant. Any political views she may have aren't interjected into Star Wars. And I think people forget that Star Wars has historically been way more political than it is now. And when I say political, I mean very left-leaning. And yeah, people often point to the prequels being very political, but they have nothing on the originals. The original Star Wars movies are very anti-authoritarian and anti-capitalist. George Lucas has often spoken about how the Empire is the US and the Viet Cong are the rebels, the freedom fighters struggling against colonialism and oppression, and the rebels beat the Empire, just like what happened in real life. It's borderline socialist. Compare this to modern day Star Wars movies, which in many ways are very apolitical and if anything are even more ambiguous than the originals, in that they try to empathize a little more with the dark side, and also the concepts of both sides profiting off war. Anyone who's right-leaning and complains about the politics of modern Star Wars but absolutely loves the originals is a fucking joke. Your ideologies and your political opinions mean absolutely nothing. You love the anti-authoritarian and anti-capitalist extremely left-leaning movies from the 70s, but you despise the relatively apolitical movies that have basic themes like war is bad and where the cast is made up of some people that aren't white. Yeah, you're an idiot. But the SJWs, the diverse cast, the strong women. Get yourself a life. Listen, you can still like the originals and dislike the sequels as a right-leaning person. That's completely fine. Just don't pretend that it's because of the politics. If you say that, then just admit that you're a grifter. Now, as always, I want to give you some examples of the type of people who indulge in this hatred towards Kathleen Kennedy. As most of you know, a lot of these reactionary channels blew up around the time The Last Jedi came out. A lot of YouTubers made videos saying that they liked The Last Jedi, but after seeing the growing outrage and the potential for views, they abandoned their original opinions and began hating on the movie and Disney Star Wars, and it still goes on today. The movies began being seen as SJW and woke, and it was really just a way for these channels to spread their far-right grifts to impressionable viewers who just liked Star Wars but didn't like the sequels. But for some reason, Kathleen Kennedy took the brunt of this backlash. It's come to the point where whenever anything bad happens in Star Wars or Lucasfilm, it's always Kathleen Kennedy's fault. But whenever something new comes out that the fandom menace does enjoy, like The Mandalorian or the final season of the Clone Wars, then it's because of heroes like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Now, I'm not saying they aren't great for Star Wars because they've definitely done a lot for the franchise, but so has Kathleen Kennedy. They're only working on these properties because she hired them to do so. But what so many of these people fail to understand or just choose to ignore is that Dave Filoni worked on the sequels too. These people praise him as a god. They don't hold him to the same standards as they do Kathleen Kennedy. There's such a clear bias towards her. Sprinkle in the fact that she's a woman at the top of a company, and we now have a great scapegoat to convince all the misogynistic and reactionary nerds that she's what's wrong with Star Wars. The only Disney Star Wars movie these people seem to enjoy is Rogue One. In particular, the Darth Vader scene at the end. Knock knock. That scene wouldn't have been in the movie if it wasn't for Kathleen Kennedy. These people are so biased to the point where they'll ignore any good she does because they need someone to blame for their feelings getting hurt so that they can keep their audiences happy. Another thing people have been saying for years is that Kathleen Kennedy is getting fired from Lucasfilm. They've been saying this since 2017 and she still hasn't been fired. Disney has made a lot of money from Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy is running the company well in their eyes. Why would they fire her? Now, one of the most notorious spreaders of this conspiracy theory is Mike Zero, the guy who just plain lies about pretty much everything he says. Like, just look at some of these videos. None of them have any truth to them. He's been doing this for years now.
Now, it's explained that behind the scenes, many changes have been made over at Lucasfilm, where it's noted that the Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, has come to a decision where he is going to have the ability to fire Kathleen Kennedy from Lucasfilm earlier than her contract expires. It said that Chapek already has his lineup of candidates for the new president of Lucasfilm, and that even though Kathleen Kennedy is willing to leave Lucasfilm very soon, Chapek is described to have a plan to fire her very soon, later this year, that will go into full effect sometime next year.
This man just pulls these leaks right out of his ass. And also, if you don't believe me that these rumors of Kathleen Kennedy getting fired have been circulating for literal years, take a look at our boy Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers being certain that she's getting fired.
What's up, Geeks and Gamers? It's Jeremy coming to you with another video, and today we got some great news, potentially great news. Rumors are flying. Kathleen Kennedy, her time is up. Maybe not officially right now, but it's going to happen soon if rumors are believed to be true, and I definitely believe them to be true. I actually believe Kathleen Kennedy is already gone from behind the scenes. She has no power, but publicly they're still going to try to save face and make this a gentle change of the guard because of the PR nightmare that they could be facing by firing a woman. We don't want to fire women because you can't do that, right? Even when they have been a complete and total disaster and ruined the greatest IP in the history of the movie business.
Thing is, they don't want her gone, because if she's gone, then who'll they blame for everything that's wrong with Star Wars? Oh, sorry, my mistake. They'll just blame whoever comes next. But anyways, this is pretty much what the Fandom Menace is all about. It's just made up of angry conspiracy theorists who get their information from clickbaity sources just like themselves. I mean, Geeks and Gamers often uses articles written on his own website. These people so rarely have any actual arguments. They'll call the sequels SJW just because there's a strong female lead. And I think to close off, I just want to show you a couple more clips from people like this. First up, we have World-Class Bullshitters, who is the self-proclaimed first channel of the Fandom Menace. And in this short clip, he basically verifies most of what we've covered today.
All of these unmade Star Wars projects are the fault of one person, Kathleen Kennedy. Since 2012, every bad decision has been hers. She's solely responsible for the failures. She's responsible for changing the Star Wars brand and forcing more female characters and clogging the store toy shelves. She's responsible for allowing The Last Jedi to be made from a first draft. God damn this woman.
Again, they put all the blame on Kathleen Kennedy. I get it, you don't like Disney Star Wars, but saying that every single bad decision is hers is such an idiotic thing to say. Kathleen Kennedy really has triggered a lot of incels, huh? And I also just wanted to end with a couple of clips from Jeremy's video titled Kathleen Kennedy Betrayed George Lucas and Ruined Star Wars.
I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies. I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life.
Look at her. She knows.
Make great movies.
Look at her. He just sit there and said he has story treatments for 7, 8, and 9, and he's going to trust her to make great movies. It's what he said. I'm listening again.
I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies.
This is a terrible person right here. She is a terrible person.
This is a piece of criticism that I've actually seen quite a lot for Kathleen Kennedy, that she didn't respect George Lucas's supposed vision for the sequels. But you need to realize just how little say she has in this stuff. If the higher-ups at Disney want her to make a certain story, that's what they'll make. Just because she's the president of Lucasfilm doesn't mean she's the person who decides what Star Wars becomes. As always, she's treated as a scapegoat, and by constantly saying shit like this, that she's a terrible person, it manifests in people. And BAM! Before long, Kathleen Kennedy becomes the source of all evil, while heroes like Geeks and Gamers do exactly what they accuse her of doing, which is taking advantage of people's love for Star Wars to profit and spreading their own toxic politics.
It's about good and evil in us, as well as our institutions. So, and the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people.
Or you can make bad choices.
Well, you make bad choices, but you run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom and everything turn it over to somebody who's going to take it all away from them? It's happened through history forever and ever, and all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules. And if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom.
Kathleen Kennedy.
And at the same time, those people who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people
Kathleen
who don't
Kennedy.
care about other people.
This clip is hilarious. It's such a good visualization of Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers not understanding the themes of the original Star Wars movies. George Lucas is talking about people like Geeks and Gamers, selfish, greedy, far right, would definitely support a Trump dictatorship, and someone who doesn't play by the rules. However, instead of having any self-awareness at all, he calls out Kathleen Kennedy for these things. The fucking irony. But anyways, at the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy is a woman, and that makes her evil. I honestly do believe that explains a lot of people's problem with her. She's a female leader at the head of Star Wars, something a lot of alt-right fans have claimed as a safe space for geeky guys. I truly think that a lot, not all, but a lot of the anger towards Kathleen Kennedy comes from misogyny and bigotry. The thing is, she's not a Star Wars fanatic. She doesn't know every detail, but she's the one who hires the people who are super passionate about Star Wars. And she knows how to produce movies, and she knows how to run a company. And listen, you can absolutely think that she's doing a bad job. You can definitely say that you don't like the way Star Wars is going, because she does play a big part in that. However, let's keep the conversation realistic and civil. Let's not put all the blame on her and attack her personally. Let's try to actually understand her role at Star Wars instead of lying about her and using her as a scapegoat to fuel these toxic channels. If you believe she's done something wrong, then I absolutely want to hear about it down in the comments. I'm not saying she's without faults, I don't know everything she's done, and I really do want to hear you guys' opinions down in the comments. Let's of course be respectful though. But yeah, my overall conclusion is that this hatred towards Kathleen Kennedy has been taken way out of proportion. But anyways, I just wanted to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and join our Discord down below. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, stay safe and peace out.